Is your industrial sewing machine going too fast? I'm going to show you how to slow it down, and that's going to help you sew with more accuracy and control. So if you've got a sewing machine and it just seems like it just takes off on you, you probably have a clutch motor. So those old clutch motors, those motors are great motors. If you're in a factory setting where you're sewing the same thing over and over and you get real good, you get proficient at sewing that one thing, hundreds of times a day. And also typically if you're dealing with garments and whatnot, you might be dealing with really small stitches. But if you start sewing with things like canvas and upholstery, speed is not your friend in those instances. So that's why the servo motor comes into play. It'll sew real slow so that you have excellent control. So if you've got an old sewing machine, like this is an old sewing machine from probably the 70s or 80s. I mean, it's a pretty old machine. When I got it, it originally had a clutch motor. And so you'll take an old machine, you think, man, that machine is crazy. I can't use it, it's just too fast. It's not really the machine per se. It's the motor that drives the machine. So if the motor that's turning the machine is turning that machine slowly, then it acts completely different. Your old machine will act, well, it'll behave in a way that is just more friendly to the operator. So this has a servo on it, and it's just a lot easier to control with your foot. So where a clutch motor tends to want to take off, this one is just nice and slow. The needle can go very slow. And some people like to talk about how a sewing machine will sew slowly. They'll mention stitch by stitch. Now stitch by stitch with needle positioners, you can actually have a machine where you just touch the pedal and it'll go a stitch. But with this doesn't have a needle positioner, but you have enough control with your foot that it's almost like stitch by stitch. So I can just set the needle down into the fabric like that, and then with my foot I can just go to the other, just put it down on the next side. So that's one stitch, right? So you can control each stitch with your foot. Now, I mean, honestly, I'm probably going to reach up and hit the hand wheel, but you do have enough control with this to basically go stitch by stitch if you choose. Now I don't have this servo on the lowest setting. I'm just controlling the speed with my foot. And to illustrate, I'm just going to stomp down on my foot to show it at the actual speed that this servo is set at. Okay, so it'll go pretty fast. The only difference is where I'm placing my foot. And the servo motor has a wider range for your foot to target in order to have control. Some of the clutch motors, the range that your foot moves between, we'll say slow and fast, is just very small. The servo motor gives you a little more of a range, so it's easier to hit that just slow spot without being super accurate with your foot. It's just easier to get to this point. And even speed it up just slightly, slow it back down. It's just a lot easier. And if you want to go fast, you get to those places, it's just nice to have that option. So again, if I want to just slow it down, it's real easy to do with your foot. So yes, you can turn the motor down to its very lowest setting, and so it'll only go a few hundred stitches per minute. I find that I like to set it about halfway, so that in those instances that I want to speed it up, I can do that. But if I want to sew slow, which I normally do, it's just real easy to get to this point. You go around a curve or whatever, and then when you get to where you want to sew straight, you can speed it up so that you're not, spending all day on your project. So getting a servo motor for your industrial sewing machine, I think, is your best bet for slowing down and getting good control for your sewing machine. Now there are other ways that you can slow it down even more. You may hear a lot of people talking about speed reducers, and I've got a couple here in the shop. They will further slow down that machine. I find that in 9 out of 10 cases, this servo motor alone, I'm very satisfied with the speed of a machine like this. The speed reducer costs about as much as a servo motor, and it has some issues. One issue is that the machine becomes somewhat more difficult to operate by hand when you want to advance the machine with the hand wheel. You've got that extra added friction and weight of that speed reducer. And also the speed reducer will give the machine momentum. So what happens is when you take your foot off the pedal, it kind of moves just a little bit more. There's more weight for that brake on your motor to stop. And so it doesn't always stop it quite as fast as you might want. It's not a big deal, but it's there. Another thing with the speed reducer is now you're going to have two belts. You're going to have a belt from your motor to the speed reducer and from the speed reducer to the machine. So now you've got two belts. So it becomes more expensive, it becomes more complicated. Oftentimes you have to remove the belt from the speed reducer in order to tip your machine back like this. But with the servo motor, we don't have that problem. We don't have to remove the belt. It just rocks back. Then when you put your machine back in place, it's all ready to go. Unless you just need your machine to be very, very slow. It's probably not necessary for most folks, but options are good. My recommendation is first get a servo motor. Second, smaller pulleys on the motor make for slower machines also. So that's another option. It doesn't cost very much. If you have a servo motor, check out this link right here for getting a smaller pulley for your servo motor. The same can be done for the clutch motor, but I find that with the clutch motor, it's still going to be pretty fast, even with a small pulley. Check down in the description. I've got links for these products that I've discussed so that you can go and look at them at least. You can see exactly what I'm talking about that way. If you decide to purchase from those links, I'll get a small kickback. No additional cost to you. Thanks a lot for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Become a subscriber if you haven't already.